Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. Tonight I want to talk to the men who lie awake next to someone they care about, wondering what she's really thinking. Maybe you've stared at her when she wasn't looking. Maybe she was laughing with her friends, her head tilted back just so, and you caught yourself thinking, who are you when I'm not watching? You see, most men are taught to read the room, but not the woman. You're told to be strong, to protect, to provide, but not to ask the questions that might unravel her or you. And yet, don't you want to know? The woman next to you, behind the smile, beyond the surface. What does she hide when she's sober? What truths slip through when her inhibitions are low, when the world softens and her words come unfiltered? This isn't about manipulation, it's about revelation. Because drunk words, they are not lies. They are the whispers of suppressed truth, the feelings she edits during daylight. And if you ask the right questions, not just curious ones, but brave ones, you might finally understand the heart you've been trying so hard to win. In this video, I'll show you how 6 questions, 6 small doors that open into something far deeper. Stay with me. There's a moment every man has lived through. It's late. The lights are dim. A soft song plays in the background, and she's curled up next to you on the couch. Maybe there's a wine glass in her hand. Maybe her laughter lingers longer than usual. And suddenly, she's not the same woman you woke up next to this morning. She's softer, louder, maybe looser, but also in some strange, beautiful way more honest. And you wonder, is this her truest self speaking? Because you know, don't you, that sober silence often guards the deepest truths. But under the warm haze of alcohol, something inside her peeks through, something she usually hides. We've all been conditioned to ignore those moments, or worse, to treat them like frivolous drunken chatter. But what if I told you those late night whispers, those slightly slurred confessions, those teary jokes and raw reflections, those are the sacred windows into her truth? And what if you could gently, lovingly guide her into that truth, not with force, not with expectation, but with one simple thing: questions. Not just any questions, but the kind that unlock her past, her present, and the version of herself she's too afraid to admit she longs to become. Now, let me be very clear. This is not about taking advantage. This is about intimacy, about meeting her in a space where her walls are down, not because she's lost control, but because she finally feels safe enough to stop performing. That's what we're doing here. We're entering a realm most couples never visit, and for the men who dare, what they find is often the truth they were afraid to ask for, but always needed to hear. So, why does it matter? Because most men don't know what their woman actually wants. Not really. They think they do. They assume. They project. Or worse, they stop asking altogether. And then resentment creeps in. Confusion takes root. You feel rejected, distant, or frustrated, and she doesn't know how to say what's on her heart because no one's ever asked her the right way. She doesn't trust you'll hold her truth with tenderness. But here's where everything changes. When she's had a few drinks, when the stress has melted from her shoulders, when her voice is a little more playful and her gaze a little longer, that's when you gently enter the sacred. And the first question you ask is this: what's something you've always wanted to tell me, but never had the courage to say? Now, don't rush her. Don't stare like you're expecting a performance. Let her breathe. Smile softly. Let the silence be safe. She might laugh nervously. She might say something silly at first, or maybe she'll dodge it with a joke. That's okay. That's the first defense. But if you stay calm, if you hold the space, she'll feel it. She'll feel your presence not as pressure, but as protection. And when she does, she just might open. And what she says next, it might shock you. It might sting. It might soothe. She might tell you she feels insecure next to you, or that she doesn't feel seen, or she might whisper that she's falling deeper for you than she ever expected. Whatever it is, it will be real. And if you're brave enough to receive it, it will bring you closer than any kiss could. You see, men are often taught that strength is silence, but emotional maturity is curiosity. Emotional intimacy isn't built on grand gestures. It's built on the courage to ask what's true when the filters fall away. So once you've opened that door, you take one step further. Ask her softly, almost like a wonder, if you could go back in time and stop yourself from falling for someone, would you? Watch her body language. Not to judge, but to understand. She might pause. Her eyes may drift off into the past. This question isn't just about you. It's about her. Her regrets, her heartbreaks, her patterns, the ghosts that still linger in her heart. And if you're really listening, you'll hear what shaped her, who hurt her, where the cracks formed. You're not asking this to compare yourself to her past. You're asking to understand the soil her love grew from. Was it nurtured? Was it neglected? Did she learn to withhold, to overgive, to wait too long, or to run too soon? These are the truths that don't come out in daylight. These are the shadows she tucks under her mascara and confidence. But in the stillness of a vulnerable moment, she might offer them to you like tiny shards of glass. Handle them carefully, with presence, with love. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. Isn't this manipulation? Isn't this unfair? Catching her off guard? But this isn't about trapping her, it's about freeing her. Alcohol in small doses disarms the parts of her that feel like they have to be polite, perfect, or performative. You're not prying into her past with force. You're giving her permission to share what's always been just under the surface. And that's what builds true connection, not control, not tactics, but presence. Because the truth is, most men live beside mystery. You see her body, you touch her skin, you hear her voice, but you don't really know her story. Not the one she tells at brunch, but the one she tells herself when she's alone. And that story, that narrative, it's quietly dictating how she loves you, or why she can't, or why she's still unsure. But when you ask with curiosity instead of control, with love instead of logic, you give her a gift few men ever do. You give her the gift of being known. And for a woman who has spent years editing herself to be liked, loved, or accepted, being known is everything. So take the moment. Let it be unpolished. Let it be messy. You're not looking for rehearsed answers. You're looking for soul-level honesty. And when she sees that you're not flinching, that you're staying, that you're listening, she will give you more of her heart, more of her trust. And from there, intimacy begins to rebuild itself. So now you're sitting there, still beside her, still holding that rare and precious silence between you. Her eyes linger on yours just a little longer, and the air carries that sweetness only vulnerability brings. She's told you something small, or something enormous, and in that moment she's studying you, subconsciously asking, can you hold me through this? Can you meet me here without flinching? And if you do, something unspoken shifts. This is where the third question finds its place, not like a dagger, but like a candle in the dark. You ask, when was the last time you felt truly desired? Not just wanted, but adored. Now pause with me here. You might assume she hears that kind of praise often, that men must constantly be telling her she's beautiful, sexy, magnetic. But desire is not always spoken in compliments. Desire is felt in attention, in presence, in the way someone looks at you like you're made of fire and history, like they could spend forever studying the shape of your soul through your skin. Most women, yes, even the ones who seem confident and endlessly admired, carry a deep ache to feel not just wanted but worshipped. This question, when asked gently and without agenda, touches that ache. She might laugh, she might roll her eyes and brush it off like it's a silly romantic idea. But if she's quiet for a second too long, if her gaze drops or her breath shifts, you'll know there's a longing there. Maybe it's been months, maybe years, maybe never. And maybe you're the first man who ever asked her that, not to get something from her, but to understand something about her. Because we all want to feel irreplaceable. We all want to feel like someone, somewhere, sees us as art instead of obligation. And when she starts to speak, don't interrupt her, don't correct her. Just listen. Maybe she'll tell you about a fleeting moment with someone who looked at her like she was a sunrise. Maybe she'll talk about a time in your own relationship that she misses. Or maybe she'll tell you, honestly, that she doesn't remember ever feeling that way. It's not your job to fix that in this moment. It's your job to witness it. And if you're brave enough to hold her gaze and tell her, without trying to be poetic, without trying to be smooth, that you want her to feel that with you, you may just begin rewriting the story you're both living inside. Because here's the truth most men don't hear enough. Women remember how you make them feel about themselves far longer than anything else. And when you make her feel seen, deeply seen, especially in a moment where her truth is raw and unfiltered, that becomes unforgettable. And now that you've unlocked that door, you move into something even more delicate. You ask, what part of you do you think no one truly understands? Do not underestimate the weight of this question. Every woman carries something she has tucked away, something too complex, too misunderstood, or too painful for casual conversation. It could be her ambition, her sadness, her sexual appetite, her mother wounds, her secret fear that she's too much or not enough. And most of the time, she's learned to hide it. Not because she wants to deceive you, but because life taught her that most people aren't safe enough to handle it. But when you ask this, and you ask it while holding space instead of judgment, she may finally take a risk. She may share a part of her that feels ugly, complicated, or unfinished. Something she never puts on display. Something she's tired of holding on her own. And this is the beginning of a new kind of intimacy. Because love isn't just about what you like in each other. It's about what you're willing to sit within each other. The shadow as much as the shine. This question invites her to be known not just in her light, but in her mystery. She might hesitate. She might tell you, I don't know, or that's too deep, or I've never thought about that. That's okay. That's her protective shell speaking. Just nod. Stay with her. Let the moment hang in the air without panic. Eventually, if she feels your calm, your patience, your reactivity, she might open. Maybe not fully, but even a sliver of that truth will be more intimate than anything you've shared in weeks, maybe months. Because this is what most relationships are missing. The unsexy, unscripted, completely human invitation to be seen. And this is what transforms your connection from a routine into a revelation. By now, you might feel the gravity of what you've started. These aren't casual questions for a tipsy night. These are the doorways into her emotional core. They're like warm hands on a cold window pane, melting the frost of everything unsaid. And what makes it work is that you're not just asking these questions for answers. You're asking them because you care enough to know her soul. You're not here to gather information. You're here to build a bridge. So when she answers, receive her. Don't debate. Don't interrupt. Just hold her words like fragile glass. Sometimes she will surprise you. She might tell you she feels misunderstood in how deeply she thinks or how little she trusts. She might reveal that her confidence is a carefully crafted costume. Or she might say something simple like, "No one ever notices how hard I try." And you'll feel it, the sting of a truth she's lived with silently. But now she's not alone in it anymore. And that's the difference. You see, connection isn't about knowing someone's favorite movie or coffee order. That's trivia. Connection is about knowing the texture of their silence, the shape of their heartbreak, the fear they hide behind the laughter. And when you create this kind of space, you give her the rarest gift, the freedom to be exactly who she is without needing to shrink. That's when love begins to breathe again. Because most relationships suffocate under unspoken truths, not from malice but from fear, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear that if I show you this part of me, you'll leave. But if you lean in, if you stay, if you show her that even her darkness is worthy of presence, you build a trust that no amount of chemistry or charm can replace. And that trust, that's what keeps her choosing you, not just loving you, but choosing you again and again. So as the night unfolds, as her guard continues to lower and her soul begins to show, remind yourself, this is not about her being drunk. This is about her being real. And it's not about you getting answers. It's about you creating a sanctuary where truth is allowed to exist. And that, my dear men, is more seductive than anything else you could ever offer her. She's softer now, not just in body, but in spirit. There's a gentleness in her eyes that wasn't there when the night began, a quiet surrender that says, you've earned this, and maybe you don't even realize it yet, but what she's giving you now is rare. Not just her story, but her trust. You see, when a woman feels safe, when she knows you won't weaponize her words or shrink her truths, she becomes luminous. Not performative, not pleasing, luminous. It's the beauty that doesn't ask to be seen. It simply is, and you're lucky enough to witness it. So now, when you're this close, when you've leaned in and heard the echo of her realness, this is the moment to ask something most men never dare. What's something you fantasize about, but have never told anyone? And no, this isn't just about sex. Fantasies are windows into the subconscious, yes, but they're also unspoken needs, creative hunger, emotional cravings that couldn't find a safe home in reality. Sometimes they're about power, sometimes about surrender. Sometimes they're not even physical, but symbolic. A place she's never been, a life she never lived, a version of herself she hasn't met yet. The way she answers tells you not just what turns her on, but what wakes her up. Maybe she wants to be chased, not just flirted with, but pursued, like she's the plot twist in a novel. Or maybe she wants stillness, a moment where she's not responsible for holding the world together. Maybe she dreams of freedom, of losing control, but not being punished for it. What you're asking is not for entertainment, it's for intimacy. Because when she reveals her fantasy, especially if she's never spoken it aloud, it's a sacred offering. She's handing you a piece of her inner world, raw and trembling, unsure if you'll mock it, judge it, or worse, ignore it. Don't minimize her. Don't make it a joke. Hold it with your presence, with your breath, with a whisper of thank you in your eyes. You might be surprised, you might be flattered, or confused, or stirred, but above all be reverent, because in that moment, what she's showing you isn't just desire, it's permission to meet her where she's never been met before. Now take a breath, because we're going one layer deeper. You ask her gently, with no agenda, who did you think you had to be loved? Let it hang there, let it sit, because every woman has been told, explicitly or implicitly, who she needs to become to be lovable. She was shaped by the hands of expectation, parents, culture, men, media. Maybe she learned to be quiet, or sexy, or agreeable. Maybe she was told she had to earn love by giving too much, or withholding everything. This question touches the archetype inside her, the identity she's performed, the woman she became to be wanted, and the one she's terrified of losing, because if she lets go of that version, who's left? She might tell you, I thought I had to be the good girl, or I thought I had to be hard, like nothing hurt me, or I had to never need anything from anyone. And that's when it hits you. She's been carrying a mask, maybe not with you directly, but in the world. And that mask, no matter how beautiful, successful, charming, is heavy. When she speaks her answer aloud, she begins to loosen that mask. And if you look at her, not with correction, not with solution, but with understanding, you become the first man who doesn't need her to be anything other than her. That's the turning point. Because when a woman realizes she doesn't have to perform love to receive it, she breathes differently. Her shoulders drop, her eyes soften. And she leans in, not out of duty or expectation, but because she wants to. This is where the real connection starts. You've gone beyond surface. You've passed the stage of how was your day and into the marrow of her narrative. You now know what shaped her, what she longs for, what she hides, what she's afraid to ask for. And as she unfolds before you, piece by piece, a quiet thought might enter your mind. Why haven't we done this sooner? Because here's the truth most couples never learn. Deep intimacy doesn't come from years. It comes from depth, and depth requires questions, gentle, bold, disarming questions. So let me remind you, this isn't about trickery. This isn't about catching her in a vulnerable state. No, my love. This is about finally hearing her without the layers, the stories, the roles. This is about emotional nakedness. And just like physical intimacy, emotional nakedness requires trust, attention, and slowness. It's not rushed, it's not loud, it's quiet, intentional, present. You're not just a man anymore. In this moment, you're her witness. And there's something incredibly masculine about being a safe space. Not a fixer, not a talker, just a sacred container where she can fall apart or fall into herself and know she won't be punished for it. So now, you've asked 5 questions. You've seen parts of her that even she doesn't fully understand. You've cracked the door open to her longing, her desire, her fear, and her most honest self. And something unexpected happens. You start to feel closer, not in the obvious ways, but in the way she looks at you now, the way her hand touches yours, the way her laughter is a little freer. Because when a woman feels emotionally safe, she becomes playful, she becomes affectionate, she becomes powerful in her softness. And that's the beginning of a bond that no amount of drama, distance, or distraction can break. Because now you're not loving an illusion, you're loving a woman in her wholeness. And that, my dear listener, is everything. It's quiet now. The music may still be playing in the background. Maybe her head has found its way to your chest. Maybe her voice has grown soft, even sleepy. But the atmosphere between you, it's charged, not with tension, but with something sacred. A kind of closeness that doesn't announce itself loudly, but hums beneath your skin. You've walked with her through so many emotional corridors tonight. And now, here comes the 6th and final question. The one that reveals not just who she was or what she hides, but what she's secretly hoping you'll become. You lean in and ask, almost like a whisper into the night, what do you need from love that you've never dared to ask for? Let that breathe. She might not answer right away. She might not have ever thought about it this way. Because women, more often than not, are taught to accept what love gives, not request what love lacks. She may stall or get teary or laugh to fill the silence. Let her, it's not a test, it's a tender exploration. This question, it reaches the root. Because every person has something they desperately crave from love. Something they've been afraid will sound too needy, too dramatic, too complicated. Maybe she's been told to keep her standards low so she won't be disappointed. Maybe she's been praised for being low maintenance. Maybe she's buried her needs so deep, even she forgot they existed. But now, in this soft and sacred moment, you're asking her to remember. Maybe she'll say, I need to be chosen over and over again, even when it's hard. Or maybe she'll whisper, I need love to feel safe. I've never had that. She might even say, I need space more than people think. I need to not be touched sometimes and still be loved. Whatever she says, it will be the blueprint of her deepest emotional architecture, not the one she shows the world, but the one she whispers into pillows when no one's listening. And tonight you are listening. Don't interrupt. Don't explain. Don't respond with, well, I already do that. That's your ego trying to protect itself. This is not about being right. It's about being real. Just hold her gaze, or her hand, or her silence. Let her feel that her need isn't too much, that her longing isn't shameful, that her honesty is welcome. Because most women don't fall out of love because they're bored or unfaithful. They fall out of love because they grow tired of holding in what they truly need. They become shells of their vibrant selves, trapped in relationships where they feel like they're only allowed to speak half-truths. Watered down, edited versions of their heart's cry. But you just gave her permission to tell the whole story. And what happens next is something you can't script. Maybe she'll cry. Maybe she'll open even more. Or maybe she'll just look at you differently, like she sees you, finally, as the one who sees her. This is where the energy shifts. The masks are off. The performances are over. What remains is something raw and real and rare. You've asked 6 questions tonight, but the truth is they're not just questions. They're invitations, each one a mirror. Each one a bridge. And the reason they work, why they open her like the petals of a flower in moonlight, is not because she's drunk. It's because for once she's not scared of judgment, not scared of being misunderstood, not scared that her truth will make her unlovable. Because when you asked these questions, you didn't use them like weapons. You offered them like gifts. And that's why you got answers most men never hear. But now comes the part where most men fail, because hearing her truth is one thing, holding it is another. You need to understand, what she shared tonight may not all be easy to hear. Some of it might stir your insecurities. Some of it might make you wonder if you've been enough. If you failed her in some invisible way, that's okay, let it wash over you. But do not defend, do not react, just reflect. Because the truth is, she didn't open up to blame you. She opened up because maybe for the first time she believed you could hold her complexity without shrinking away. This is a sacred trust. And what you do next determines everything. Tomorrow, she might feel embarrassed. She might wonder if she said too much. She might even pretend parts of it never happened. That's a defense mechanism, a kind of vulnerability hangover. Your job, be steady. Don't tease her. Don't reference it to score points. Don't weaponize her softness. Instead, bring her coffee in the morning with the same tenderness you held her stories with. Kiss her forehead. Make her feel safe again. Not because she's fragile, but because she was brave. And tell her not with dramatic words, but with quiet assurance. I heard you. I see you. I'm still here. That's it. Because women remember that kind of presence, that quiet consistency, that safety. And when you become a man who can be trusted with her truth, she will begin to pour into you a love you've never known. Not because she owes you, but because you've become the place where her soul can rest. And I want you to know something. Truly, this kind of connection is rare. Not because people aren't capable of it, but because they've never been shown how to create it. You just learned how, and it didn't require grand gestures, no gifts, no fireworks, just questions, real questions, from a man who is willing to trade performance for presence, ego for empathy, control for connection. And in doing so, you've stepped into something extraordinary. This is what makes a woman stay. Not because she has to, but because she wants to. Not because you're perfect, but because you're present. So tonight, as she drifts off next to you, as the night fades into soft shadows and silence, know this: you're not just a man beside her, you're a witness to her becoming, and that is the most intimate place a lover can stand. Morning arrives like a whisper, the light filters softly through the blinds. Her breathing is slow, her body warm and curled next to yours. You're not just waking up beside her, you're waking up inside something deeper, a moment, a truth, a shift in the energy that neither of you can quite explain, but both of you feel. It wasn't magic, it was presence. You didn't perform, you didn't push, you simply sat in the quiet and let her unfold. And now everything is different, not louder, not grander, just realer. And that, my dear man, is the rarest kind of love. We live in a world of performances, of filtered pictures and practiced conversations, of dating advice that teaches strategy, not sincerity. But what no one tells you, what too many men are starved to hear, is that true connection begins when you stop trying to win her and start trying to know her. Not just who she is when she's dressed up and glowing under city lights, but who she is in her stillness, in her quiet, in her laughter that turns into tears, in her anger, in her ache. The 6 questions you asked weren't tricks, they were invitations, not to seduce her, but to see her, and what you did last night, whether she remembers every detail or not, left an imprint. Because for the first time in a long time, maybe the first time ever, she felt like she could stop pretending, stop editing, stop shrinking. She got to speak, and you didn't leave, you didn't flinch. You didn't try to fix her pain or silence her desire or make sense of her chaos. You stayed, and in staying, you became more than a man to her. You became a place, a sanctuary, a mirror that didn't distort her, didn't shame her, didn't ask her to be anyone but who she truly is. That is the most powerful intimacy. It doesn't live in the bedroom. It lives in the silence between two people who have chosen to be emotionally naked together. You see, a woman isn't asking for perfection. She's asking, can you meet me in the places where I don't even have the words yet? And when you ask those 6 questions, not as a game, but as a gesture, you're telling her, I'm not afraid of your depths. I want to swim in them with you. That's what changes everything. Because now she trusts you. Not just with her body, but with her story. And trust, real trust, is what turns a relationship into a refuge. So here's what I want you to remember. If you're listening to this now, if you've made it this far, it's because something inside you is hungry, not for control, not for tricks, but for truth. You want to know her. And whether this woman is your wife, your girlfriend, your almost, your maybe, or even just someone you're starting to love, you now carry a tool that most men don't. Curiosity that's rooted in care, not interrogation, not performance, presence. You've become the kind of man who asks not, how do I get her to love me? But rather, how do I become a man worthy of her truth? And that's everything. That's the man who doesn't get ghosted. That's the man who doesn't have to chase. That's the man who is remembered, not because he had all the right moves, but because he had the right intention. And one day, whether it's today or months from now, she will sit across from her friends, smile gently and say, there was a night where he asked me things no one ever had, and I felt safe, seen, loved. That will be you, because you did something most men are terrified to do. You stepped into the fire of her truth without trying to put it out. You didn't ask questions to control her. You asked to connect with her. And connection, real, soul-deep connection, is what every woman remembers long after the sex, the dates, the drama, and the highs fade away. Now, I know this isn't for everyone. Some people will watch this and laugh it off. Some will say, that's too much, or that's not how you play the game. But the kind of man I'm speaking to, you're not playing games. You're playing for keeps for legacy, for the kind of love that outlasts beauty and novelty and even time. So here, as we come to the end of this video, I want to leave you with this: every woman holds a secret world inside her, and most men never see it, not because she's hiding it, but because they never bothered to ask with enough gentleness to open the door. You have the key now. Use it well. Be curious. Be kind. Be brave enough to listen. And if you do, if you stay the course, you won't just win her heart. You'll be trusted with her soul. Thank you for being here. If this video spoke to you, if you felt something stir in your chest, something unfamiliar but honest, I want you to leave a comment, share your experience. Let this space be a place where men learn how to love deeper, not harder. And if you found value here, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, where love is not a performance, but a practice. Until next time, take care of each other. And remember, the truth isn't what ruins relationships. It's what saves them. Here's to real love, always.